Hi, and welcome to The Other Side of Leadership, a series by SoMeDocs that explores leadership beyond titles, roles, and traditional hierarchies. In medicine and healthcare, leadership is often defined by position, but every day there are women shaping teams, supporting colleagues, mentoring others, and creating impact in ways that may not always be visible or formally recognized. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Rachel Arriola, who serves as a clinical triage nurse within the VA healthcare system. What stands out most about Rachel to me is how she leads through deep empathy, integrity, and groundedness, consistently showing up in ways that impact those around her. I nominated her because honestly, she entered my mind first as a person who displays the true qualities a great leader should possess: kindness, humility, self-awareness, empathy, consistency, and competence. She reflects the kind of leadership this series is all about, one that goes beyond titles and is felt in everyday moments. So I'm really excited for this conversation, and thanks for joining us, Rachel. My first question to you is, when you hear the word leadership, what does it mean to you today? Not the textbook definition, but your lived version.
Yeah, it's funny that it says not the textbook definition, because the first term that comes to mind is maybe a textbook, but servant leadership. It's something that was kind of drilled into us in nursing school. But I think it is something that, rings true and is probably the closest descriptor to my current lived version. I think that there can be quite a big disconnect in the healthcare world, between staff members and maybe traditional management or leadership. Staff, I think, feel maybe a bit misunderstood or not fully appreciated for the day-to-day tasks that they have to complete. But I would say a good leader is someone who's deeply familiar with the day-to-day of what their coworkers are doing or going through. And so, yeah, the great leaders that I have worked with, that I do work with now, and ones that I try to emulate are ones that, are able to get their hands dirty, so to speak, and kind of jump in when they're needed. And I think also what makes servant leadership a great descriptor is, I mean, kind of like what you already said, you don't need to be in any type of official capacity to lead and to help your coworkers out or be a leader wherever you are. You kind of just basically need to have a desire or a heart to serve, so to speak.
I love that. Yes, definitely more of that silent, invisible characteristics that aren't broadly displayed and coming from the heart for sure, which you emulate extremely naturally. But it's exciting. It's nice to hear that you've also seen this in other leaders of your own, that has influenced and inspired the way that you lead.
Right, absolutely.
What is something you do consistently that contributes to others but often goes unseen or unmeasured?
Yeah, I love this question because I think I mean, it's something we've already started talking about. There's so much power, I think, in our attitude and how we treat people. I think in the world, that we live in, the healthcare world in general as well. But it's so easy to become burnt out. And the systems that we kind of live in are not necessarily built for everyone. So it's very easy, I think, to fail each other. And to be kind of a part of that failing system. But something that I try to do to combat that would definitely be just basic empathy and kindness, and treating, whether it's a coworker or a patient, treating them with the same respect and care that I would my friend or a family member. And I think the way that that actually works is when you're able to offer a bit of honesty or a bit of vulnerability. I think when you like offer that little bit, it then gives, hopefully the other person permission to then be honest back. And, I think when we're honest with each other and there's, some mutual like care and respect there, that can make like a huge difference, whether it's, like just your workday being better. And then in turn, like you're not as stressed out, but like for patients, especially, and, veterans, especially, I think there's a lot of mistrust and, they get very frustrated very easily navigating the VA system. But when you come into contact with somebody who's honest, who's not just like acting like a robot, you are building like a trusting relationship. And yeah, I just feel like it can go quite a long way. And it's difficult to measure or like tangibly see, but, significant nonetheless.
Absolutely. Yes, your kindness and empathy and thanks for adding to the vulnerability and honesty that is maybe you just embodying your authentic self, which is beautiful, but it's also nice to hear that like it's intentional with the intention of modeling and creating safety for the veterans that you serve to be able to potentially follow suit.
Right.
Planting a beautiful seed there. What is a moment in your career that changed how you see yourself as a leader?
Yeah, the moment that kind of like, woo, just instantly came to my head was as a young ICU nurse. I was, maybe within my first year or so of working. And it was my first patient that I had that was like actively dying, or that we knew like they were likely going to pass away on my shift.
We'll be right back.
What if networking in healthcare actually worked the way it was supposed to? No chasing posts, no algorithms deciding what you see. We built a WhatsApp community for healthcare professionals, where conversations happen in real time and people actually respond. One of those spaces is Leadership for Women in Healthcare, and these are some of the women inside it. Beyond that, there are rooms for AI, business and medicine, non-clinical paths, students, and more. You step in where it fits, and you start connecting right away.
Let's get back to the show.
As a young ICU nurse, I was, maybe within my first year or so of working. And it was my first patient that I had that was like actively dying, or that we knew like they were likely going to pass away on my shift. And she had one family member who was elderly and, couldn't stand to sleep in the hospital recliner, so she went home, but wanted to be called when it was looking like it was time. And of course, middle of the night, it was looking like it was time. So, I call the family member. She's on her way, but it just became very obvious, that she wasn't going to make it in time. And in the ICU, it's such an interesting environment where it's very emotionless, very like, yeah, you're, it's a Tuesday for us. Patients are dying, whatever. It can feel like that's the type of attitude that's there, and it just felt very like wrong for me as I think a human and just how I am, and so it just felt wrong that this patient was like dying by themselves and like nobody was with them. So I went in there and held her hand as she passed away, as the sister was there. And it was something that I, then carried through, through my ICU years. The 8 years that I was working in ICU, always, if I had a patient that was by themselves, didn't have family members, always made a point to be with them in their dying moments. But that moment, I think made it very obvious, like, wow, I just have, this level of compassion and empathy for sure, that like I like physically couldn't not, like be with them. But how that shapes just like how I see other people too. Like it just was a very big humanizing experience that like, wow, beyond all of it, the stress and chaos, the tasks, the politics, like everything underneath it all, like we're just human. And we all have this basic like desire. And, I think we deserve some amount of like basic acknowledgement and knowing. And I think that for sure has influenced like the way that I lead, but also, yeah, as I see myself and see others.
Yeah, that's it's quite beautiful. I've heard it before, and it still tears me up hearing it again. And this is maybe a somewhat related question that you've answered already somewhat, but how would you say your identity has shaped the way that you lead?
Right. Yeah, this is definitely one of those like, oh my God, it all like I concede now. I never thought about the way that I lead or myself necessarily as a leader, or I haven't like reflected on it a lot. But answering these questions, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah. And I think, yeah, this is probably what it boils down to, or why, the biggest like shaping thing to me as a leader. My identity, I think it comes to mind just like the basic core, like in my family dynamics, being child number 5 of 6, being in this big family. I, maybe always felt a bit overlooked or, a bit misunderstood. But I think the big thing being that it was much easier in a big family to be like placating and, just like pleasing everybody. Is easier to do that rather than be honest. And I think that like honesty point is a big one, because now as I lead, I make such an effort to, create an environment where people feel supported and people feel like they can be honest and that they can like come to me, whether it's like good or bad, it doesn't matter. And honestly, like, especially when it's bad, people know to come to me if they need help. So yeah, I feel like definitely plays a big role in how I have developed as a leader.
Oh, thank you for your honesty and vulnerability and being a part of this important conversation, sharing your wonderful perspective. What you've shared today is exactly what this series is about: leadership that isn't always visible, but is deeply impactful. To everyone who's watching or listening, we hope this conversation expands how you see leadership, not just in others, but in yourself. This is The Other Side of Leadership.